Have you ever had the feeling that there's a kind of hidden door in the financial market? A door that seems locked to most people, but opens easily for a select few investors? Stick with me until the end, because what you're about to discover might surprise you. The truth is, within the universe of wealth building, there is indeed an invisible door, a psychological and behavioral barrier that separates those who only dream of wealth from those who actually build it. And this door doesn't respond to fame, networking, or luck. It responds to something much simpler and at the same time, much more difficult: consistency. At the beginning of the journey, before the investor reaches the famous 250K, they are almost a ghost in the market. They are there, trying, studying, striving, but in the eyes of the sharks, those experienced, disciplined investors who live on another level of opportunity, they don't truly exist yet. Not because they lack potential, but because they lack something that only time and behavior can prove. This is where most people get frustrated. While some believe that to reach the big investment level, you need influential friends or privileged access, the reality is different. What opens doors is not how much you know about finance, but how much you actually do. Sharks see patterns, consistency, discipline. They observe how you react to emotional mistakes, whether you change your strategy every time the market fluctuates, whether you stick to a plan or jump from hype to hype, hoping for a quick return. Have you ever experienced this? That anxiety of feeling like you're falling behind because you haven't yet accessed opportunities that seem reserved for a secret group? It turns out there's a before and after 250K that completely transforms how the market sees you. Not because the number itself is magical, but because it tells a story. The story of someone who has overcome the most difficult part of the game. Someone who resisted impulses. Who didn't give up after the first setbacks. Who overcame phases of doubt. And who began to prove, month after month, that they have the emotional maturity and financial discipline to continue growing. That's what makes the invisible door start to move. That's what attracts the attention of mentors, off-market opportunities, private groups where information and investments circulate that simply don't appear to beginners. But most people don't realize that this door is never truly closed. It just doesn't open when the person is still trying to force their way in, without having developed the necessary behavior to be recognized. And as you evolve, as you begin to truly understand the game, you discover that access was always there, just waiting for you to become someone who knows what to do when the door finally opens. And this brings us to a fundamental point, perhaps one of the most important for anyone truly committed to leveling up in the world of investing. And before we move on to this next layer, I want to extend an invitation that's as much a part of this journey as any financial concept. If this topic resonates with you, if this idea of the invisible door has somehow touched you or reminded you of a phase in your life as an investor, leave a comment below about what has resonated with you the most so far. It could be a question, an experience, a feeling of knocking on the door without being noticed. Your perspective is important because, in addition to creating a real dialogue between us, it helps other people who are going through the same path realize they are not alone. And since you're here, diving deep into wealth building and understanding the psychology behind sharks, take the opportunity to leave a like. It may seem like a small gesture, but it makes a huge difference. When you like the video, the algorithm understands that this content matters and starts delivering it to more people who, like you, want to improve in the financial game. It's a simple, almost invisible way to open more doors for this message to reach those who need to hear it. If you feel that this type of conversation strengthens you, gives you clarity, or even challenges you to rethink behaviors, subscribe to the channel too. That's how you show me that you want to continue walking with me through these deeper layers of discipline, consistency, and wealth building. Your participation here is what makes this channel grow and reach more people with this type of content. People who may be exactly where you were one day, trying to understand why the market still doesn't see them. And speaking of seeing, there's a point in the journey where all of this starts to make much more sense. A point where the logic of the invisible door reveals itself in a way that few can explain. Now, I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because understanding the psychology of great investors completely changes how you view this journey. When we talk about a shark mindset, we're not talking about aggressiveness or coldness, but about a mentality trained to identify patterns, and patterns say much more about someone than any talk about wealth or the future. Sharks aren't impressed by those who promise to make money, nor by those who talk about grandiose ambitions. What really catches their attention is the silent repetition of discipline, month after month, even when no one is watching. It is in this consistency that they see transformation, maturity, and emotional depth, because only those who truly understand the game can maintain progress even on difficult days. They observe everything: behavior during downturns, rationality in moments of pressure, the ability to follow a plan without abandoning everything at the first market fluctuation. For them, impulsive decisions reveal a fragile emotional foundation, while rational decisions reveal someone who has already understood that wealth is not born from desire, but from behavior, and this hidden truth completely guides the filter that the sharks use to define who is ready to enter more serious environments. When an investor manages to increase their wealth predictably, without relying on sudden bursts of luck, it creates a silent impact that commands respect. It's a clear sign that the person isn't just trying to succeed, but is actually building a solid foundation that withstands the test of time. And sharks value this because they know, from their own experience, that consistency is rarer than talent and more powerful than any single opportunity. That's why they have no interest in teaching someone who changes their strategy with every new trend, because this type of behavior doesn't develop financial muscle. On the contrary, it creates a cycle of anxiety that delays progress. To those on the outside, this sometimes seems unfair, as if there were a rigid selection process based on favoritism. But when you observe calmly, you realize that this selection is entirely behavioral. Great investors want to connect with people who respect the process, who understand that wealth is a gradual construction, who accept the journey with its phases, its falls, and its inner revelations. They seek partners who don't crumble under pressure, who have the mental clarity to weather storms without losing focus. And this mindset shapes who stays on the path and who gives up too soon. When you begin to observe yourself honestly, you realize that this filtering isn't just external. It happens within you as well. You start to identify your own patterns, your triggers, your emotional decisions. You recognize moments when you sought shortcuts and moments when, even without realizing it, you were already acting like someone who deserves to access higher levels of the game. And it is precisely in this awareness that the journey takes on a different meaning, because you understand that the invisible door doesn't open for those who want to enter. It opens for those who are prepared to remain. Comment below. That makes sense to me. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because when we talk about the 250K mark, many people imagine there's something almost mystical about that number, as if it were a magic portal that instantly transforms any investor into someone respected in the market. But the hidden truth is quite different. 250K has nothing supernatural about it. It's just a sign, a silent marker that this person has crossed the hardest part of the journey, that phase where discipline is tested every day, where doubts seem greater than results, and where decisions need to be made with courage, even when no one is applauding. These first steps are the most challenging, because it's when the investor is still developing emotional muscle, learning to control impulses, and understanding the difference between desire and strategy. When someone reaches $250,000, what's impressive isn't the money itself, but everything that amount represents. Behind the scenes, it represents months, sometimes years, of constant contributions, difficult choices, sacrifices, and mistakes that become learning experiences. It represents a mindset that has evolved to the point of not crumbling in the face of volatility, that understands that wealth is built, not luck. And that's exactly why mentors, private groups, high-ticket investments, and off-market opportunities start appearing at this point. Not because someone decided to make a distinction, but because before that, the person hadn't yet proven they know how to survive the game. The market watches in silence. It notices who gives up at the first dip, who gets lost in fleeting trends, who seeks shortcuts instead of solid paths. But it also notices who stays, who adjusts course without abandoning their purpose, who accepts the reality of cycles without despair. When an investor reaches 250K, they send a clear signal. I'm not here on impulse. I'm here to stay. And this signal has an edge, more impact. It communicates maturity, consistency, and above all, humility to learn. Because nobody reaches this level believing they know everything. On the contrary, they arrive realizing how much there is still to discover. And it is precisely here that doors begin to open. Doors that, for those who are starting out, seem invisible, unattainable, almost fictitious. But they exist, and they only appear for those who have already demonstrated, through their behavior, that they are not in the market to play around. Exclusive investments, deeper conversations, opportunities that depend on trust. All of this begins to flow when the investor proves that they are not an adventurer, but someone who respects the process. And this completely changes the perception. From this point on, the game ceases to be a struggle for survival and begins to become a more strategic, more conscious construction, more aligned with the long term. But there's an even deeper layer to this story, a revelation about behavior and evolution that few people truly grasp. Write this down. I'm on this journey too. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because there's a hidden truth that almost no one talks about. Even before reaching 250K, you can already start sending signals that you're ready to play at another level. And these signals have nothing to do with the size of your account, but with the quality of your behavior. It's interesting to observe how some investors spend years trying to prove that they deserve opportunities, while others, who haven't even reached the halfway point, begin to be seen with more respect simply because they've developed a different mindset. They don't jump from trend to trend. They don't fall for the impulse to follow the news of the day. They don't let themselves be carried away by the anxiety of appearing successful. They follow a clear strategy, and they follow it even when no one is applauding. This kind of consistency creates impact, and it creates something even more powerful: predictability. When someone contributes every month without excuses, without hiding behind emotional justifications, it reveals a level of maturity that goes far beyond a bank balance. It reveals someone who understands that wealth is a daily construction made of small, conscious decisions. It's not just about investing, but about becoming someone trustworthy to the market, to potential mentors, and above all, to oneself. Documenting decisions is also a habit that transforms the journey. Because when you write down what you did, why you did it, and how you felt, you begin to see patterns that were previously hidden behind the scenes. Patterns that show where you succeed, where you fail, where you repeat behaviors that sabotage you. And each of these revelations is an important step in developing a more solid mindset, better prepared for greater challenges. Sharks pay attention to this, not because they are spying on your every move, but because behaviors leave traces. And these traces say a lot about who you are becoming. Another crucial point is how you talk about money. Those who demonstrate maturity in this area don't use the topic to show off, don't compare earnings, and don't try to impress anyone. On the contrary, they speak lightly, naturally, as if they understand that finances are part of life, but don't define anyone's worth. This emotional balance is rare, and that's why it stands out. And perhaps the most revealing behavior of all is avoiding the shortcut seeker mentality. Because nothing betrays immaturity more than the constant search for quick solutions, magic formulas, or easy paths. Sharks recognize this pattern immediately and stay away. But they also recognize when someone has made the decision to walk patiently, to respect the process, to accept that real transformation takes time. And that's when they begin to see you as someone who, even while still under construction, already carries within themselves the signs of someone who will go far. And there's another fascinating layer to how this behavior connects to the doors that begin to open along the journey. Comment below. That makes sense to me. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because there's a revelation that many people only understand too late. The shark's door doesn't open when you knock on it. It opens when you prove, through your behavior, that you would keep walking even if it never opened. This is the hidden truth that separates those who only desire wealth from those who are truly ready for it. The market observes every step, not literally, but through the signals you emit through your decisions, your patience, your ability to stay focused while others give up along the way. And it's curious to see how this logic works behind the scenes, because the more disciplined you are, the more opportunities begin to arise without you needing to ask, beg, or present yourself. It's as if the journey itself begins to test you, checking if you're someone who only runs when they see an open door, or if you're someone who builds the path even in the face of silence. This path demands a different mindset, an emotional resilience that isn't always taught in books. Most people give up before realizing they were just a few steps away from the moment everything would begin to change. They knock on the door, receive no answer, and turn back frustrated, believing the market is closed, elitist, or inaccessible. But what truly determines who succeeds isn't force, shouting, or insistence, but silent consistency. It's the accumulated impact of each small habit, each contribution, each rational choice you make when no one is watching. Sharks aren't impressed by haste, they're impressed by depth. They want to see who keeps moving forward even when the path seems monotonous, because they know that true courage doesn't appear in euphoria, but in repetition. And there's something almost poetic about it. The door starts. To move precisely when you stop depending on it to keep walking. When you operate on principles, not immediate rewards. When your decisions cease to stem from anxiety and begin to stem from purpose. From that point on, the journey stops being a desperate race and begins to become a conscious construction, where each step has weight, each choice has intention, and each renunciation brings you closer to a more mature version of yourself. You begin to understand that access is not given, it is earned. There are no shortcuts, there is evolution. There are no promises, there is internal transformation that precedes any external conquest. And the more you respect this process, the more doors begin to open along the way. Not because the market decided to accept you, but because you've become someone the market recognizes. This is the point where confidence, consistency, and patience meet, creating a kind of energy that naturally attracts opportunities. And when that happens, you finally understand that the entire journey had a greater purpose, to prepare you for what could only be delivered when you were truly ready. Comment below. I'm on this journey too. If you've made it this far, it's because this topic of mindset, discipline, and wealth building truly resonates with your journey. So let me tell you something very directly, but lightly. If this content has helped you see the market and your own evolution from a different angle, subscribe to the channel. Here we delve deeper, question, dismantle illusions, and build a more mature vision about money. And I want you walking with me on this transformation. And since you followed everything to the end, leave a comment saying, "I'm with you until the end." This is the simplest way for me to know that this message reached you at the right time and that it made sense to you. Take this opportunity to leave a like, not because it helps the channel, but because we created a real connection throughout this video. And this gesture shows that this type of conversation deserves to continue here. And before you leave, do this. There's a video over here that perfectly complements what we talked about today. Click on it and continue watching.